Welcome back to Zoho Placement Preparation Series. In this part 8 video, we are going to discuss about the concept of array and pointers output type question which are all asked in Zoho interviews. So before getting into the question, let's discuss some basic definitions about array and then pointers. So array, in the sense, it is a collection of elements of same data type which is stored in the contiguous memory location, that is in a sequential order. The elements are stored in a sequential order, and the array index basically starts with the value 0. So here the basic declaration of an array variable, here the integer array variable has been declared with a size of 4, which means it can hold up to 4 elements. In the right side, it's a diagrammatical representation of this declaration. So the starting index starts from 0 and 1, 2, 3. This is an index position of an elements. For example, if you want to store the elements 10, 20, 30, 40, then it will be stored in this order. First the 10 will be stored in the 0th position, and furthermore 20, 30, 40 in a continuous order. And one more thing in the array, if we try to pass the array to a function, means in this place this ARR will be considered as pointing to a first element. Compiler will automatically converts it as it will points to the first element. So this means it holds whole elements of an array, but currently it will points to the first element. This is the meaning of ARR. I mean, this is the meaning of when passing the array to an function. Next, pointer. Pointer means it stores the memory address of another variable rather than storing the direct value. So in pointer there are two main basic functional operators, are address of operator and dereferencing operator. That is this symbol is represented as ampersand and this symbol is represented as asterisk. So this symbol is completely used to get the address of any variable, and this symbol will use to dereference the value which is stored in particular address. Here we declared a pointer variable, basic pointer variable. Here now first in the first line the normal integer variable is declared, and in the second variable the pointer variable is declared and initialized with the address of the variable a. This is the purpose. Now let's get into the question type of just a minute. Now let's get into the question. In the first question, look at the code carefully. Here they had declared an array, integer array, and initialized the elements, 5 elements. They had initialized with 5 elements, and each element's index position will be 0, 1 and then 2, 3, 4. So which means in the 0th index the 10 value is stored, and in the 1th index the 20 value is stored, and in the index 2 30 is stored, in index 3 40 is stored, and in index 4 50 is stored. In this way the array will be the elements will be stored in the array. So the next line, they had tried to print the value. Here they had used it in a different manner, but it is a valid code. This code represents ARR of 2, which means the second index position of an array. This is the meaning of this representation. We can represent like ARR of 2 or else 2 of ARR. Both are same meaning. So which means in the array the second index, it points to the second index of an array. So here the value in the second index is 30. So the output will be printed as 30. And in the second printf, they had again tried to print an element of an array in a different approach. They had mentioned a pointer and ARR plus 3. This represents, in this ARR represents the base address of an array. Base address in the sense starting address of an array. The starting address of an array, which means 0 plus 3, which means it gives us 3. This is the third index of an array. So the value in the third index is 40. So here the output will be printed as 40. So the final output is 30, 40. Okay. This type of questions were being asked in Zogos mostly, and not only in Zogos. In many of the MNC companies, they concentrate on the topics called arrays, pointers, functions. These are all the topics they were covered. Now let's move to the second question. In this second question, look at the code. Here they had defined an user defined function called check underscore size, and in the main function they had declared an integer array and initialized the array with 5 elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 0th index, first index, second index, third index, fourth index, and in the second line they had printed the size of the array. Here this ARR will be considered as a basic array. I mean it will be considered, this ARR will be considered as an array variable. So size of array in the sense here total it calculates total number of elements. Here total number of elements is 5. But the output doesn't print as 5 because it is an integer data type. So each integer, one integer which will occupies 4 bytes. So here 5 integers are presented in the array. So for each integer 4 bytes. So totally 20 bytes of space will be occupied here. So here this printer, in this printf, the output will be print as 20. And in the third line they had called a check underscore size function and passing the whole array as an parameter. This represents, this ARR represents the first element of an array. It points to the, currently it points to the first element of an array. So after calling this check underscore size, the execution moves to definition of the function, and here again they had declared an array integer, but the compiler considered this as an pointer variable, not an array variable. The compiler will consider this as an pointer variable. So inside this function they had again printed the size of ARR. So in this place it doesn't consider as size of array variable, it considered as size of pointer variable. So for a pointer, it in 64-bit system, for a pointer it occupies totally 8 bytes. So here the output will be printed as 8. So the output will be 28. Okay. Now let's move to the third question. In the third question, just a minute. Okay. In the third question, look at the code. Again they had declared an integer array and initialized with 3 elements 10, 20, 30. And in the second line they had assigned the whole array into a pointer variable PTR. So this represents the PTR is pointing to the first element of an array. This is the meaning, first element of an array. So this PTR now consists pointing to the first element in the sense 10. So now they had printed star PTR plus plus. This means here two operators are used. This is an increment operator and this is an pointer operator, dereferencing operator. So first the pointer value got printed, and after that the index position of the pointer will be incremented or moved to the next position. This is the meaning of this line. So first the pointer value is currently pointing to the value 10, which is the first element. So the output will be printed 10. After that the pointer moves from first index to second index because of this plus plus. And in this statement, which means in the second printf statement, star PTR, now the pointer is moved to the next position. The next position value is 20. So here output will be printed as 20. And in this third printf, look carefully, they had used as a bracket. That means they had used as a parenthesis. So after the parenthesis, So so first the parenthesis will got a higher precedence and it will gets executed first. So the star pointer means the currently the pointer is pointing to the value 20. So 20 value has been printed, and after that there is an increment operator, which means 20 plus 1, which is equal to 21. So here the output got printed 20, and after the end of this line, this 20 will be incremented to 1, incremented by 1. So the value gets 21. So now in the fourth printf, the star PTR will print the value 21. So the output will be 10, 20, 20, 21. This is the concept. So we want to very carefully look out the code, and we want to very precaution before marking our answers. Okay, and next fourth question. Here you can see that there is an array variable. Here they had used a two-dimensional array, which is this represents row and this represents column. So totally in the matrix array variable, we can store about 6 elements, which means row into column equal to total number of elements. Okay, so 22 into 3 equal to 6 elements. Sorry, 22 not 22. 2 into 3 equal to 6 elements. So here you can see this is the first index, I mean 0th index, and this is the first index, I mean 0th row and first row. In 0th row there are 3 elements, and in first row there are 3 elements. So totally 6 elements. This is the representation. But computers cannot understand the rows and column concept because here a multi-dimensional array is stored using row column major order, which means the computer cannot understand this. So the computer maps out this array as a sequential order, which means the computer store this in a sequential order, which means 1, 2, 3, and after that 4, 5, 6. In this order only the computer can understand and computer can store. Okay, and in this line, in second line, they are trying to casting this array variable into a pointer variable. This lines, the meaning of this line is casting the array variable into a typecasting has been occurred. They are trying to casting the array variable into a pointer variable. Okay, so now the pointer will the pointer variable will steps through it in a linear order, that is sequential order. So here in the printf statement they used star PTR plus 4. This PTR represents the base address, which means the starting address 0 plus 4. So which is 4. This is the index value, fourth index value. So now 0, 1, 2, 3, 4th. In the fourth index value there is a value called 5. So the output will be printed as 5. This is the order of. So here main concept has been taken place, the typecasting, which means typecasting means changing from one data type to another data type is called as typecasting. Here the array data type is typecasted into a pointer variable. After that it follows the sequential order, that is, it follows or step through it in a linear order. Okay, so this is the output. So the output will be 5. In this video we had discussed about 4 output type questions, and in the upcoming video, in the next video also, we are going to get in depth into array and pointer concepts, and there also we are going to discuss about more output type questions. If you had liked video, like, share and subscribe to our channels, and furthermore receive the notifications of the upcoming videos of this series. Thank you.